virtual expressions of abundant thought, served with a side of humor. A vibrant, intangible playground for the expression of ideas, concepts, and thoughts, queries, energy, research about synchronicity. With guests, stories, experiences, imagery, magic, awareness, and you. Cool coincidence. Hello, world. This is Barbara Karnes, and you're joining me tonight on the broadcast of Cool Coincidence. Tonight, the topic is flipping fun with shared synchronicities. And the reason I've called it flipping fun is because a big chunk of it will be about an experience I had in the last week and a half with a friend of mine about flipping somebody off with your middle finger. If you haven't noticed, the Facebook image that I shared this week of myself where I promote the show, as well as the photo that you'll find on the Blog Talk Radio of me cycles through along with the logo and the 5D media image, has me with a finger up. Now, of course, I'm a Photoshop artist, so that's not really my hand. I stuck that in there, but that's what it's about. We're going to have some flippin' fun tonight. Let me just do a little housekeeping. I wanted to remind everyone that during the course of the show, I refer to a number of things that you will find on our Facebook page. So if you want to follow along, or if you're listening to this in the archive and you want to refer back to some of the things we've talked about during the show, you can visit that Facebook page, which is facebook.com/coolcoincidence. And I highly encourage you to like it. If you like the page, if you click the like button, then you'll get the updates as they happen. And I often post synchronistic events that I'm experiencing as they're occurring, or as shortly thereafter as I can gather up the steam to put all the pieces together and share them with you. I'd love to have you call in. We do have one person in the queue, and their hand is not up, so I'm assuming they're just listening. But please call in. We have about 400 live listeners, and let me see how many people are actually in chat right now. We have 2 people plus myself in chat. So that always cracks me up because, those 400 people, I'm sure some are listening in their car and some are just listening to it through iTunes, which we are affiliated with, and on other people's websites that share Blog Talk Radio. But come join us. Go to blogtalkradio.com/thecollectiveimagination, and you'll see the link for tonight's show or any other show that happens to be playing on the 5D Media Network. For those who may not know, the 5D Media Network is an operation started by Lisa Harrison, and there are a number of programs on this channel and more being reviewed for addition all the time. If you're interested in doing a show on something in the alternative media realm, you can actually send me the email, and I'll make sure that Lisa gets it. My email address is coolcoincidence@gmail.com. But come join us. Join us in chat. Share your thoughts. Call in. The call-in number is 646-716-4598. Again, 646-716-4598. Now, I happen to live on Long Island, New York, which is for a suburb, I guess you'd call it, of the city. And 646 is a Manhattan exchange. So if you get long-distance charges, or you're trying to save your cell phone minutes, or if you're in a completely different country and you're not even sure how to do country codes, you can also call in through the Skype link on the show page. So visit our show page again at blogtalkradio.com/thecollectiveimagination, and you'll see tonight's show for Cool Coincidence. And then click on the link there to actually become part of the queue. And I'll be I would love to talk to all you guys about your cool experiences. My email has been exploding this week at coolcoincidence@gmail.com. I have had numerous people, from a woman who does music. She's an amazing musical artist, and her forte, her genre, is to play in the subway system. Now, those of you who don't live in New York are probably going to go, ew, what kind of credibility does she have if that's where she plays? But what you don't realize is that these street musicians run the gamut from students at NYU and the New School and Parsons and what's that school called? The School of Performing Arts. People who travel to New York and are trying to get started, are trying to get some exposure, and frankly, they can make, if they're good, they can make some really decent money. And in most cases, I don't know if they all have permits, but I know you're supposed to have a permit. But there's some exceptional talent in the subway systems. So, and she's really amazing. She's written a book, and she's got some videos on YouTube. I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but she sent me an email telling me that she just has coincidences down in the subway that you wouldn't believe. I can't wait to hear her stories, and a number of others. I'm so excited that people are sending me their stories and sharing their experiences, their good wishes via email. I would love to see more activity on the Facebook page. If you see anything there, please share it. Share it on your page. Share a comment with us. Like it. Let me know what you like and what you don't like, because that forum is really my way of sharing with you information and my experiences, as well as experiences of others relative to synchronicity and coincidence. So, please join the club. Come on over to Facebook. I also want to let you know that, as I said before, we are on iTunes, and you can find all of our back shows on iTunes, anything that was on the 5D Media Network. Just go to iTunes, open it on up. You can search for Cool Coincidence. You can search for the Collective Imagination radio show, which is on Tuesdays, Distilled Water, which is on Wednesdays, 5D Media, which will bring them all up. So feel free to join in on iTunes and listen at your leisure. Download the episodes. I know that I have some followers in Indiana who told me that they download the episodes, move them over to their iPods, and actually listen to them while they run. And I thought that's so cool, because it's a 2-hour show, and if you are running 15 minutes to an hour or longer, how much fun is that to listen to some interesting, bizarre broadcast? Just when you start laughing, just be aware that some of the people around you are going to think that maybe you're a little bit wacky. And then finally, I just wanted to remind you all that we've got a lot of sound bites that I play on the show. I store on SoundCloud. SoundCloud is a really cool, free resource, unless you go over a certain amount of megabytes of data. And you can store any audios there you want. There are a lot of musicians that put their music up there, and I use it so that I can actually put players of those audio clips on the Facebook page, because they will play right there in the page. And that's a real challenge. Most people don't realize that, that they just try to put audios up there and they find that, they're not having any success. So instead of having to throw them up on YouTube with some kind of a graphic that people may or may not pay attention to, I put them on SoundCloud. So if you want to listen to any of our really cool sound clips about coincidences that I've shared on the show, go to soundcloud.com/coolcoincidence. And finally, we have so many people that follow us on Blog Talk, so join the fan group. You will get emails that tell you about the shows that are coming up, and that link would be at blogtalk.com/thecollectiveimagination. And then just there's a link underneath the 5D Media logo image. It says follow. Just click on that. If you don't have a Blog Talk account, they'll ask you to set one up. But again, it's free. And that way you can stay on top of any of the shows that we do, or any of the other amazing, immeasurable number of shows that Blog Talk makes available to the public. So that is my housekeeping for the evening. I was really excited also that we had about 400 live listeners last week, and we've had over 2,000 archive listens. And that ain't bad in a week, and people will continue to listen to them. Each week we're ranging between 400 and 600 live listens on this program, and anywhere from 2,000 to, I think we've topped out just under 4,000 in a week. Some of the ones that we broadcast at the beginning of the season, which began in January, week after week, people are listening to them, and they're reaching really high numbers. So thank you. Thanks to all of you for the emails, for the support, for listening. Just let me know what else you'd like to hear, what you like, what you don't like, and I'll continue to incorporate it into the show and make the changes so that you really enjoy this broadcast. Now for some of the fun. The topic again tonight is flippin' fun with shared synchronicities. And when I say shared synchronicity, I'm referring to a situation where two or more individuals are sharing the same elements of some type of a synchronistic experience. Now, many times when you have a coincidence or a synchronicity, you're having it with someone else because they become part of your synchronistic or coincidental event. An example could be you think of somebody and then the phone rings. Well, that person now becomes a part of your synchronicity. But what makes it shared is when they actually become part of it and begin to experience synchronistic events on the same topic or genre as well. And I have that happen a lot. Talk to people who hang with me for a little while. If you come into my world, however it works, there's some kind of dust that comes off of the energy field around me or something that if you spend enough time around me, all of a sudden you'll start experiencing synchronicities with me and oftentimes by yourself. I don't know how it all works, and frankly, I don't always care. I just have so much fun with them. So let me just talk to you a little bit about something that's happened in the last week and a half to give you an example. And I do have a number of sound clips and other things to support this. For those of you who listened to the program last week, you heard me talk a little bit about my friend Maureen and a post that she put up about her father's passing. He actually died in September of 2011, and it really was moving for her. They expected it, and it just is. She was so close to him, and he meant so much to her that it was really hard. She had heard me talk about, on many occasions, the story of how my floodgates of synchronicities began when my mom died in May of 2009. And so I found a gentle way just to remind her, because I knew how much it would mean to her if he's able to let her know the same thing my mom did, which is that there's more going on. Not so much, yes, you become a ghost, yes, there's a heaven, nothing that specific, just that there's more. So we speak often, and I reminded her about my story, and I said, if you find the right moment, you may want to ask your dad if he's up for it. I don't want you to make you uncomfortable or you in turn make him uncomfortable. But if you find a moment to find something that he can share with you so that once he's passed, you get a sign per se. And what I had said with my mom was, send me something, just be something beautiful. We're not going to put a label on it, just something that's so unequivocally so that I'll have no doubt but know it's from you. And what Maureen did was something very similar, and she waited for more than a year. And she got little signs, and she would, bring them forward and talk about them and say, I wonder if this might be it. But when she got her unequivocal sign, it was about 2 weeks ago. And what it was a photo of her niece's son, who they named Jack, after Maureen's father, which would be little Jack's great-grandfather. And they have a picture of him, and he's just an infant flipping off the camera with his middle finger up. Now, of course, he's an infant. He doesn't really know what he's doing, but it was just the fact that he did that because Maureen's father, in jest, used to do that all the time in private, family, one-on-one sessions, especially with Maureen. Now, he was actually a very well-known corporate head and sat on the board of directors of numerous corporations out on the West Coast. And I'll just kind of leave it at that because I don't necessarily want to, identify him or go into his history because that's not really what's important. And, of course, because of that, he's got a level of sophistication and panache where he wouldn't just go flip somebody off in a work environment. But he did it a lot, and he did it with people that he loved and in fun situations. And so when she saw that picture that her niece then sent to her, and that picture is of an infant named Jack after her father, and he was flipping her off, she knew that that was the sign. Now, that was just the beginning. When I saw that, I was so excited for her that she had that experience. Because when you have synchronistic events, and I'm telling you the story, some of you may be sitting there going, so what? I mean, it's a picture of a baby, with his middle finger up. That doesn't mean anything. But you know what? What makes it synchronistic is what it means to you. Something that is synchronistic to me, someone else, they may not get it, and that's okay, because that's not what it's about. You feel it as much as you experience it, and that's how you know that it's coming from another realm, another source, from another energy, however you want to play that out. So when I saw it, I was really excited, and so many things happened after that. Number one, she had a number of people say, oh, that's just wrong, and give her a hard time about posting that picture because to them that it made them uncomfortable. And one of the synchronistic clips I have for you to listen to today actually addresses that. So when she posted the original image on or about the 7th of March, I reposted it on my webpage and got some of the same kind of mixed results. Then she posted a photo of her father flipping off the camera when she's taking the picture to show everyone what she was talking about. And then she posted a follow-up where she was saying, so many of you are giving me a hard time, and I don't mean to offend anybody, and I apologize, but this means a lot to me, so I'm sorry about that. But then the synchronicities began to happen with me and her in relation to this. The first one, well, there were a whole bunch of them, but I brought two of them to the forefront. The first one happened in conjunction with something that you will see that I posted on the Cool Coincidence Facebook page. Let's see if I actually have this one up. On what date did I post this? Well, I'll put the link in chat. It was sometime this week. It was early in the morning because it says it's March 10th. I was listening to an interview that I had really been wanting to listen to for a few days by Lilu Masse. And Lilu interviewed Eben Alexander, who is a neurosurgeon, about his near-death experience. Well, I love those stories, and I'm a big fan of a number of people who have had them and talk about them. And so I was listening to it. And what was funny about it was that Maureen actually posted just below Lilu's post something that said, someone in heaven loves me. Share if you love someone in heaven. Just one of those graphics that people post, like dog pictures and things like that on Facebook. But it happened to appear just below the Lilu Masse post where she's saying, so enjoyed this interview with Dr. Eben Alexander, who's a neurosurgeon and author of Proof of Heaven. Must hear his experience of a unique NDE in scientific discovery. So here, his book is called Proof of Heaven, and right below, Maureen has a post that said, someone in heaven loves you. So I thought, well, this has got to be fun. So I started listening to that interview, and it actually got even more detailed or intense, per se. I shared that with Maureen, but then I actually, a few days later, actually I don't think it was that same day, a few days later, I think I need to drink some distilled water. It was a few hours later, I was listening to a Netflix episode, it was Law and Order, Season 8, Episode 6, and it's called Baby, It's You. And the first thing I thought of when I heard this was the fact that the episode was called Baby, It's You, and there was this baby that Maureen had posted that was giving the finger, and it actually is talking about the concepts of heaven and such. So let me actually play that audio clip for you now. Give me a second to find it. Let's see. I have so many of them here to share with you tonight, which is quite exciting. Where is it? Oh, for goodness sake, I can't believe that isn't one that I thought for sure I put that one up there. Oh, here it is. I've got it. Okay, it's only 20 seconds, and here you go.
What's that?
This is my hall pass so I can go to the crapper by myself.
Defective monk?
That's detective with a T. Munch as in lunch.
Defective monk. Like a fallen angel. That's what Brittany was.
Yeah, sure, I can see that.
So I listened to this interview with Lilu, and I then am watching this episode, and they're talking about, a fallen angel, and it's Baby, It's You. So for me, the synchronicity was shared with Maureen in the fact that I felt that there was a connection there. Then I have, let's see, let me pull this one up. I've got another one that's related to that. Then I open up Facebook sometime shortly after that, and the first post that was at the top of my feed, it says it was at 11:28 that same day. So about an hour later, it's from an old friend of mine from high school, and she says, "Hello, world. Feeling lost? Stop at your local church. They give heavenly directions." So now I get another one. And it all gets topped off for me. Maureen is actually experiencing some of these herself with, related to flipping people off. And then on Tuesday, I'm listening to a live interview with, it's called, the series is called Healing with the Masters with Jennifer McLean. And Jennifer's guest is Rika Zimmerman. And at about 41, 42 minutes into it, they go into a few minutes about something quite interesting. And here we go.
People are giving me the finger and all kinds of fun stuff. So that's what's going on. That them giving me the finger is now a tool that I get to look at and say, wow, that's fascinating.
And the way I look at it is, if you separate from yourself in any way, then there's something there. So you as a being are this infinite energy. You're this space, you're this peace, you're this possibility, you're this no separation, this total connection with everything. So if the guy flipping you off actually means something to you where you go, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. I'm a good person. Why is this guy right? You've separated from yourself.
Right.
Okay, so if the guy flips you off and you go and you just allow the energy to flow through you and nothing happens and you just continue on with your beautiful day, then cool. There's nothing to work on. There's nothing to look at. You're just in an environment where there's a whole bunch of insanity around you.
Right. And what if it does bother me? Then what? Then what do I mean, this is not a point of how or doing, but truly, when we're in that situation, Rico, what are we supposed to do? When, oh my God, I'm really upset that he flipped me off. I didn't do anything wrong. What do we do?
So in that moment, what if you just took all of that disharmonized information and actually brought it into this moment and just bead with it? So, and instead of creating more ideas about it or more stories about it, because that would actually put that content, because if it's bothering you, you put the bother there at some point, right?
Okay.
So that bother is coming up to see the light of consciousness, to actually be unraveled, to return you to who you are. Everything is working on your behalf. Mm-hmm. So if you're bothered, allow yourself just to be with the bother. Wow, I'm just present with bother. Okay, I'm really bothered. Where's the bother in my body? Oh, it's down in my stomach. Okay, I'm going to be with the bother. Instead of why is this bothering me, or I'm upset that this is bothering me, or I should be more conscious than this, you know?
Yeah. We go into a spiral of judgment that takes us deeper into a fixed position. So instead, just be with it.
And instead, just be with it. Be with it in this very moment. And just allow yourself to take those disharmonized, stuck energies and just return them to flowing energies. So what I would recommend is just connecting in with that being that you are. Connecting in with that knowing, beyond separation and beyond time. And just allow that energy of your being, that light to come through and just unlock you from the way in which you locked yourself into this reality from that piece of information.
Would you mind kind of walking us through a scenario where someone is upsetting us? We've got quite a few examples here where Mary, for example, is saying that every time she leaves, her mother gets sick, and she is using a guilt trip to stay at home. So when we're faced with people, even people we love, who appear to be, quote, unquote, manipulating us, and through this conversation I'm realizing that none of it is actually accurate. All that is kind of an illusion that's based on our own energetic field in a creative mode, allowing us to understand what, from a barometric pressure perspective, what our beliefs are. So can you maybe walk us through a process where we can kind of tap into some people that are upsetting us right now and walk us through how, so that we might be able to do this in our day-to-day lives?
Yeah, and, part of the awareness around this may be also that people control you with your beliefs.
Wow, okay. Well, there's a good one. People control you with your beliefs.
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
And you know what? I know how much all of you love being controlled, so don't worry about harmonizing those beliefs and returning you to infinite possibility, because then you'd be totally free.
What a drag that would be.
Now that was cool, you got to admit. I felt like that was the perfect thing for Maureen to listen to feel comfortable with the issues that other people are bringing to her, because she posted that picture. And there were so many really neat ideas in that clip. And boy, oh boy, was that laughter contagious. So I hope you enjoyed that. I did also forget to mention that the audio that I just played prior about Defective Monk from the SVU series of Law and Order, I actually had that playing in the background on one of my computers while I was posting the chain that I was talking to you about with the post that I was talking about. So that's kind of another reason it was synchronistic, was it was happening. I was hearing that at the same moment that I was posting on the Facebook page with the related information. So that's kind of cool. So I would love to hear from some of you. Do you have shared synchronicities? If you do, call in or post them in the chat room. Put them on the Facebook page. Because I have them all the time. And, I mean, one of these days I think I'm going to try to get Lisa on the show. Right now she's quite involved with the OPPT stuff. But she and I have these synchronistic events that crack us up and keep us linked even when we have very limited time to talk with each other, because we both have very busy lives. And we'll just post something real quick in Skype to tell the other person what just happened, and the other person's going to post back, "You're never going to believe something like that just happened to me." And and I have them with my son. I have them with my son's girl. One of his, she's not his girlfriend. His friend, his best friend, who's a girl, and on and on. So I would love to hear your stories. And that's the theme of tonight's show. And in addition to that, I have so many other things to share. So I want to kind of break it up. I don't want to stick with one thing and then have you snoozing on the floor and then all of a sudden wake up when I say something else. But speaking of that experience, have you ever been zoned out, whether you're listening to a radio or you're driving your car and all of a sudden you realize you are 10 minutes down the road and you don't remember how you got there, but because your head was someplace else, or you're not paying attention and all of a sudden something just happens that it's like you hear it or you see it and it grabs your attention and kind of brings you back. Well, that just happened to me earlier today. And I listened just to kind of fill the air with noise. I listen to Netflix or radio stations or something while I do work because I love the stimulation. And while I'm working on my corporate taxes today. I'd love to find out if anybody has any synchronistic events about taxes. And I'm actually done. I just have to print them all up and get them out in the mail tomorrow. But while I was doing my taxes, I heard this.
You believe in coincidences?
Right in the middle of a Law and Order episode, that was the line that got fed to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes I do. And I'm about to do a show on it here shortly too. Just cracked me up. So I'm going to jump back and forth a little bit to kind of break up the show and make it a little bit more fun. What I wanted to do was first go back to the Facebook page and review some of the things that have been really special for me this week. One of those is I'm actually passing all the orchid pictures from a couple weeks ago, which is a shared synchronicity that I had with my sister and some other folks. But I had a lot of really cool events this week. I post on Thursday something that I call Shared Sync, and then after that I give it some kind of a title. Well, last week on Thursday, March 7th, I posted an image of a doorknob with keys in it. And as I do each week, I said the experiment continues. I'm posting this image with the intent that a collective synchronicity occur. By collective, I mean this single image will become part of a synchronistic event for as many of you who view it as are open and willing to invite one. And so it goes. What happened to me with respect to that was, here I post, out of all the pictures in the whole world I could have posted, I post this one. And on Tuesday, I had the coolest thing happen. And this has never happened in the 15 years that I've lived in this house with my son. My son calls me from his cell phone, and he's in the driveway. And he said that he just closed the door to the garage after having put the car inside and then closing the door behind him. So now he's on the outside, the car's on the inside, and so are his keys, including his keys to the house. Well, the keys to the house also have a key on it that opens this garage door. So he was calling to sheepishly ask me if I would open the window on the second floor where I was and toss him my keys so that he could open that door and go and retrieve his. Well, that picture is that doorknob of the garage with my keys, the one I threw him, in the lock. And I just thought, how cool is that? That of all being that it never happened again, and that I'm looking to share a synchronicity with all of you, and hopefully you as well, sharing one with me and us with each other, that is the time that he asks for the keys, so that picture is actually a picture of what was actually happening at that moment. And I love that one. I also have some more. Let me get up to this week's events. Some of them are self-explanatory, so I'll just leave them to you. And if you get a chance, please listen to the audio that's posted under Inspiration Monday. It's got some really powerful information, and it's funny, and I know you'll enjoy it. It is, I've titled it, Imagine Where You Want to Be and Keep Walking Towards the Mountain. A really, really cool synchronicity that I had to do again with that audio, that interview that Lilu did with Eben Alexander about his near-death experience. Those of you who listen to the show often and those of you who know me also know that I spend a lot of time with split screens on my computer. I usually have two computers running. One is a PC and one is a Mac, and I use them for different things. One I might be processing something, so I'll work on the other one, and vice versa. So I've got two running and using them both simultaneously all the time. And within at least one of those, usually the Mac, because I've got a little program that allows me to use keystrokes to split my screen left to right with just a keystroke or top to bottom. So I had my mail open on one side, and I'm listening to that interview on the other side. And gosh, it's really early in the morning. It's like 5 o'clock or something. And the minute I opened my mail, I didn't want to really read it because I'm really wanting to hear the richness of this interview, which ran about 53 some odd minutes. But I know that there's a lot of stuff that I can do in my mail, just, go through it and get rid of some of the stuff, and siphon through and see what needs attention here shortly, what I can just delete, what I can move and file someplace, etc. And I have a little process that I go through in the mornings to do these things so I can organize my day. And one of the sections in my mail is for RSS feeds, because I review a lot of them. Most of them are artsy, photographers, artists, painters, innovators, inspirational stuff, because that's just kind of what turns me on in the world. So I open up my mail. I'm in the split screen, and I go to my RSS feed, and I go to one called Colossal. And it automatically lands on the most recent one posted, and they usually send between 3 and 6 posts a day. And I look at them once a day in the morning, and the first one, the title of it was Light, not Life, but Light, L-I-G-H-T, After Death. And on the other side of my screen was a banner for this interview that was playing with Lilu and Eben. And it said his website, www.lifebeyonddeath. And I was like, out of all the things that I could have open simultaneously, I happen to have two things open that are nearly identical. And the theme is the same, too, to me. The light after death is talking about the light that we all experience, something that's beyond the death. And he's actually talking about his NDE. So that one was really cool. And that one continued on. There are several, I believe there are several comments there as well. I also listened to this amazing inspirational video by Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza is somebody who, if I see anything about him, I will stop. And either if I have time, I will make time to watch it or listen to it, or put it on the side so that I can, find some time as soon as I can to go through it. Because he's credible, he's an eloquent speaker, he's masterful, and he's also a neuroscientist. So he lends credibility to anything that he talks about, and he's like us. He has spiritual, energetic experiences that when you parlay that or blend it with his experience as a scientist, provides some really remarkable support and data to back up some of these things that we experience. So I was listening to that. I actually have that audio. I'm going to play it for you here in just a moment. But I also had some additional, one more that I will share with you before I play the Dispenza audio. It happened on Tuesday. Every Tuesday I post something called Tuesday Q to You, and that means question to the universe. So I'm hoping that every week you will see that when I'm posing these questions, I nearly always get an answer. I try to post the answers there so that you can see them, or at least I will bring it up during the next week's show. And my question on Tuesday was, purposed at this time to remove blocks to flow, where should I begin? Be specific. So when I wrote it, what I was saying was, I feel I am purposed at this time. We collectively are purposed at this time to remove blocks to flow. And flow can mean whatever you want, because flow to me means energetic flow, collective flow, the energy in your individual life and flow, etc. So the flow is just the flow, not a particular type of flow. So where should I begin? And be specific. And the reason I put in be specific was I didn't want just to get some, hoity-toity, generalistic, flowery kind of fluff that somebody could go, yeah, but that doesn't really mean anything. That's just a bunch of hokey pokey. So I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to put this question out there, I want the specificity. And it wasn't long. It was about 45 minutes later, I heard something that grabbed my attention, and I've begged the question to all of you if you feel that this is an answer to my cue to you. And it is an episode again of Law and Order. It was, I'm not sure, it's all the details are in the post on the Facebook page or the SoundCloud link. And let me now play that audio for you, and you tell me if you think that this is an answer to that question.
Can you be more specific?
Generally, the process begins by recovering a flashback, a snapshot in time. And slowly more and more snapshots appear until the collage becomes a complete picture.
So what do you think? Do you think that was an answer? I asked for specificity, and although I still got something a little loose, it started off by saying, can you be specific? And it's like I was talking about a moment ago. The minute I heard that, I was like, whoa, I just said the same thing 45 minutes ago. I better listen to this and see if there's anything there. Well, I'd love to hear what you have to say. My take on it is something like this. Is it? I think it could be. I will wear it as if it is, because when she says you take a snapshot and you pull other pictures together and you put together a collage, to me that means if I'm looking, my original question was, if I'm purposed at this time to remove blocks and flow, where should I begin? Well, maybe the best way to begin is to start looking at different options that I may have available or that will present themselves to me. And they may not even seem at the moment as if they are related to my efforts to remove any blocks to flow, but they'll present themselves. And once I start putting the pieces together, or I start layering them in a collage, all of a sudden, all the pieces will make sense, and I'll realize that that is what I now have, which is all the tools I need to begin to remove the blocks and flow. Now, I'm expecting this to be more ethereal, more metaphysical, and I'll keep you informed. I actually had an experience this morning that I think is related to this, and I'll get to that in a moment. But so that I don't get ahead of myself, and so that we kind of break up the program a little bit, I'm going to play that Joe Dispenza interview. And it's about 11 minutes. So I will see you in about 11 and a half minutes.
Everything starts with the beginning. And if people take a moment and they ask themselves, what is my intention? Now, intention is ongoing. There's no end. It's a direction. It's like going west. There's never enough west to go. It's mission or purpose driven, and you could have an intention to be healthy. There's always more health to experience. An intention to be abundant, and there's always more abundance to have. To express love, there's always more love to move into, or more joy. So when people begin to say, what is my intention? And make it clear on their intention, and they write it down. Now, the research shows that less than 2% of the Americans actually write their intentions or goals down. The ones that do actually write them down, they have an 80% chance of reaching those goals if they write them down. So when you write something down, you're telling your brain that you mean it. Now, it's a direction that you're moving, and it has to be ongoing. And it's a to-be statement. A to-be statement is something that you're evolving into. Once you get clear on your intention, you're sponsoring thoughts, the list of reasons why you want to be healthy. Because those sponsoring thoughts are really going to be the driving force to get you going in that direction. If it's healthy, you may have vitality. You may want to look better. If it's wealth, you want freedom. That's what you really want. You want your freedom to do whatever you want, right? So when you begin to define your intention and you couple it with a sponsoring thought, now you're giving your body a taste emotionally of what that future is going to be like. Now, the next step is to plan your actions. Master your day, one day at a time. The hardest part about change is not making the same choices you did the day before. So you can say to yourself, okay, I have some pretty tough thoughts I have to overcome today. Let's just put them out and drag them out for observation right now so I know that when they come up, I'm aware of them and they're not me. That's the old self. And if you begin to look at your choices and the behaviors and you say, you know what, I've been a victim for too long. I'm not going to complain to anyone or anything about anything today. I'm not going to make excuses for myself. Those are the two things I'm not going to do. Just not going to go there. So now you've already dismantled an old part of yourself and you say, today the thought I'm going to have is that I am a genius and I accomplish everything. Or I live in no time and the universe provides for me. The universe lives in my favor. What behaviors am I going to demonstrate? I'm going to get up and I'm going to work out, or I'm going to read that article on success, or I'm going to, whatever it is, I'm going to make a choice. And then I'm going to elevate my emotional state. I'm going to keep my energy up the entire day today. Just that simple process, you've already changed on a biological level. Now, if you get up and you prime, review, and remind yourself who you're going to be, then the next step is you warmed up your brain and body to be in that personality. Get your behavior to match your intentions. Now take it out for a test drive and accomplish what you set out to do during the day. In other words, when you get your behaviors to match your intentions and your actions equal to your thoughts, you get your mind and body working together. Now you are mastering exactly what you set out to do. And now when you begin to experience the effects of your choices, those new experiences then begin to reaffirm the emotion that you created from your sponsoring thoughts. Now the loop is starting to change, and your choices begin to become a new habit. Track your changes. Take a moment and journal or have a little board on your wall and say, I got up earlier, I did a 20-minute walk, I ate fruit for breakfast, I had a salad with protein for lunch, I didn't eat past 6 o'clock, I did deep breathing exercises before I went to bed, I feel great, I'm going to do it again. When you track your changes, in the beginning of change, you can't measure any change because you're in flux. But when you see the changes and choices that you make, the research and habits show that when you begin to change one habit, it's easier to change others. And you're more prone to change more habits. So track the changes and then come out of that resting state every day. In other words, when you step out into that familiar place, you have to know that it's going to feel uncomfortable. And my definition of a genius is being uncomfortable and being okay with it. And when I can stay in that place of uncertainty and unknown, and I can transmute that energy into clarity or gratitude, that I can get my energy up even though there's chaos around me, then I'm filling that void between the old self and the new self with information. And when you change your energy, you change your life. In other words, you're so busy being elevated and know you can't predict what's going to happen. You're just very clear you're not going to go back to those familiar cravings and familiar urges. And finally, cue your environment. Take a moment and on your dashboard of your car or on the desk at work or on the mirror in your bathroom or on the refrigerator, remind yourself what your future is. Simple little cues, simple words or pictures. And if you keep your conscious mind on what you want, your subconscious mind will take you there. It's a nodal point in history, and all the energy that's coming off the sun or in its alignment of the universe or the galactic center or whatever, that energy is going to endorse who you're being. So if you're living in fear, that energy doesn't have a subjective position. It's always just going to endorse your fear. If you are in the crucible of change and you want to know or you want to be free, that energy is available energy to free you. It's the wind at your back. So if you were to take a minute and really begin to ask yourself, what part of my old self can I not bring to my new future? Because if I want to be a healthy or wealthy person or a genius, I can't bring these thoughts. I can't. That's an alignment with my future. So when you begin to realize that this is the person I'm going to create, these are the things that I have to leave behind, that simple analogy will begin to help you get clear on the direction that you're moving and allow that energy to push you. Now that energy is like the flame on the alchemist's crucible. It's going to turn base metals into gold. It's going to remove the dross. And so purification comes with quite a bit of agitation. There's got to be a stirring that takes place, and I think that most of us in the last year or two have felt this incredible stirring inside of ourselves, and that's because the energy is so intense that our nervous systems have to really adapt to it. So people say to me, oh, well, I just can't meditate because it's too intense. And I say, no, that's why you should be meditating, because you're going to create a certain level of coherence that's going to begin to translate that energy into order instead of disorder. If you need to sleep, sleep. If you need to go out in nature, go out into nature. If you need a break from your life, take a break from your life. But the energy is intensified, and it's intensified because if a new era is being created, then the dross of the old has to be burned away. And then secondly, this is a time really in history, a strong intellectual division is taking place. This is a time in history where we have to demonstrate change. It's really a time when, you really have to really work on whatever it is in the world that you don't like, to take it out of yourself. If you do not like war, then you better not be warring with your coworker, because you don't get to stand up for peace until you're at peace, And if you don't like the greed of governments or whatever, start giving. Because when you do, you give people permission to do the same. So this selfish model of reality that's built on competition and greed and all those things, war, it's all based on a selfish model that's driven by the hormones of stress. The selfless model that all of us really would like to see be born has everything to do with considering the whole. No species in evolution survives in any other state but cooperation. And I think there's a time in history where we really just have to make a choice to move into a state of being that's consistent with that. So I think we first start changing the world by changing ourselves. And who gets the benefit from that? First we do, and then our families, and then our people we work with, and ultimately our communities. So if you look at our purpose in life, I think our purpose in life really isn't to be successful or to please God or to do the right thing or to be popular or to be beautiful. I think our purpose in life is really to remove these layers, these masks, these habits and emotions that block the flow of the divine within us. And I think that when we begin to make an effort to begin to remove them, that divine intelligence begins to leak out of us. It begins to bleed through us. And I think we become more like it. I think we become more loving because that's its mind. We become more giving. It's a giver of life. We become more conscious. It's a consciousness. And we become more willful. It has an amazing will. So when its nature becomes our nature, when its mind becomes our mind, when its consciousness becomes our consciousness, then all of a sudden I think we have a certain level of joy that happens within us. And then I think that energy that is now springing out from us in that selfless way is really when we begin to consider others and we begin to give, because we feel so great. We say, I feel so amazing. I want you to feel the way I feel. And the only way I can do that is to give you something. And I think that's when a species, just from a scientific standpoint, starts to work in cooperation. And I think that's the only way it's going to occur.
Now, wasn't that lovely? I heard three things while I was listening to it now. And I originally heard this, Monday or Tuesday, that relate to other things that I have been talking about tonight. The first is he talked about intention and making sure that it's clear. And for many of us, that also includes writing it down. Excuse me. He talked about using meditation as a means of reaching that level, connecting with that part of yourself that will open up and let some of those things begin to fall into place, whatever those things are for you. And then the last thing, did you hear him say, block the flow of the divine? Well, I'm just wondering if that isn't another one of my collage pieces. Now, just as a reminder, I want to go back and tell you that the question was purposed at this time to remove blocks to flow. Where should I begin? Be specific. So first, I get that clip where they ask for specificity, and the woman says, you go back and get a snapshot, and then you pull all those snapshots together, and eventually you have a collage. Well, you know what? He was talking about what was required, what he felt was necessary to block the flow of the divine so that you can achieve all the things he was talking about. No reason to regurgitate everything he said. I know that you are all very intelligent people, and so you know where I'm going with this. Now, today, it was probably around lunchtime because I wasn't able to do it this morning. I listened to day 4 of Deepak Chopra's meditation challenge. He does these twice a year. He's calling this one the winter one, and we're on day 4. Well, the first couple of them have actually been quite nice, but today I had something amazing happen, which ties into what Joe just said. Joe Dispenza, by the way, Dispenza is spelled Dispenza. You should Google him and just devour all the information you can find. But Joe was just talking about meditating, and I was in the process of meditating this afternoon somewhere in my late lunch. What I realized was that I was having an experience that I felt was one of flow, one that was bringing collage pieces. And I'm going to try my best to put it into words, because it's always hard to express experiences that are not directly sensory with words. They're just limiting. But in essence, I'll try to give you the best overview that I can. Let me see if I can get to my notes because I just want to make sure that I don't miss anything. It was about a 6-minute meditation once Deepak gave his introductory song and dance, and the actual meditation began. Maybe a minute or so into it, I started seeing really rich purples, really deep, rich purple flows. If you go to the Cool Coincidence Facebook page and you look at the Tuesday Q for You image, that's kind of what it was like, but instead of those individual little lines that are like string-like, they were blobs, but they were moving in that same kind of flowy fashion. Now, I see those kinds of things when I meditate quite often, and purple is one of the colors that I get a lot. But then was where the unique elements came in. And this is the part that I'm going to do the best I can to try and explain. As these purple waves of color would, and my eyes are closed, were passing, let's say, on the screens of my lids, it would be as if you took as if they had transparency with them, so that as they passed over whatever was behind them, you could see what was behind them, but as soon as they passed, then it was like a solid, let's say, black wall again. So in other words, if you were looking at a movie and somebody had a big, what are those things called? A big ribbon, and the ribbon was really wide, and they were just moving it. But the ribbon itself was the only thing that you could see through. You could see the color of the ribbon, but it was transparent. So the only part of the movie you could see was the part that the ribbon was going over. Now, all of a sudden it went from like a deep purple to a really day-glow lavender. Slowly, it hued, it faded in. And as it did that, I saw a face. And it just was a face of a real person, probably a young man, maybe in his 20s. And, of course, it came and went so quickly because it was, it just showed up within that flowing color of purple that it was like, whoa, look at that. And once I realized I saw, a real face, it wasn't a drawing, it wasn't a cartoon, it wasn't, it was just a face that it's almost like I was looking at more closely now at it. Just like if you were driving down the street and somebody ran in front of your car, you're going to start looking more at that person as they walk away. I was now looking to see if I could see more, and that's when I realized I was only seeing them as these waves of color were moving across this black, background, which was, like the backs of my eyes or the backs of my lids. And then I saw some more things. I saw, again, only within the waves of color, I saw a woman, and then a group, almost like it was 3 people close together, like their picture was being taken, but it was in black and white, and they were kind of commonly dressed, and probably dressed from maybe the 20s, 30s, 40s, as if they were paupers. But again, these images went so fast, and as soon as the color would sweep up, they would be gone because they were staying still, but the color was moving, and when the color would come back down, something else would be there. Then I saw small groups of people, and I'm going to say it kind of looked concentration camp-like in that they were wearing those kind of tattered clothing. It was in black and white. But they were still pictures. They weren't, real moving images. Then I saw what I'll call newsreel-like stills. If you watch those old newsreels from way back in the 30s and 40s, of machinery. And I don't know what that machinery was at all, but it was that same kind of sepia-colored image. And then they continued for a while, and then the waves of color went from purple to a deep gold. And then the deep gold then would hue with light to a really light yellow and then white and then go back. Now we're only talking about 6 minutes, and it's probably taken me 6 minutes to describe what took, much less time to experience. But what I realized it was a flow again. And I didn't make the connection between that flow and the collage pieces, but I was thinking, this is breaking. This has to have something to do with that flow. I just don't know what it is yet. So who knows? That could be another puzzle piece per se. So what I thought it would do was something a little different. We've got some 6 minutes to spare here, so I only pulled that portion. I took out the Deepak part, the beginning and the end, and just pulled out that 6-minute meditation. And I'd like for you to, by Ambiflex, I'd like for you to play along with me here. And again, let me know if you experience anything. Tell me in chat. Send us an email at coolcoincidence@gmail.com. Call in to the switchboard. The number is 646-716-4598. You can also use, if you've got Skype, you can click on the Skype button on the Blog Talk show page. And let me know if you have any kind of experience, because I would love for this to be a shared experience of trying to unblock the flow. So let me find that audio, that meditative audio. I would like to ask for you to get in a comfortable position, whatever that is for you, whether it's sitting with your hands in your lap, palms up, whether it's in a chair. I found that if you at least try to have your back straight, it actually increases the connectivity as opposed to slouching and leaning back into the chair. Whatever works for you. If you are more comfortable, if you're in a couch, I don't care. Just get comfortable. Take a couple of deep breaths. Take them long. Hold. Exhale. And as you're doing that, with each deep breath that you take in, as you exhale, feel yourself relax. Let yourself relax. Tell yourself you are now relaxing. And what you will find is slowly from your head, through your ears, your eyes, the socket area, your neck, even your jaw, down through your shoulders, your back, your arms, your hands, all the way down your spine, into your buttocks, your legs, down through your calves, your feet, your toes, your fingers. You will relax. And as you do that, if you haven't already, close your eyes, and we'll have a 6-minute meditation now. come back. I didn't want to come back. Well, I had a great experience. It was different than the first. Two things stood out for me. One is that if you took a camera and you zoomed in to the side of someone's face so close that all you could see was their eye from a kind of profile point of view, but slightly turned towards the camera, I saw that. I saw an eye. And it was not a picture of an eye. It was like a real eye. And it stayed there and came out and came back. It didn't look like it was the same eye each time, but it was the same perspective. And something that was even more remarkable than that was I had my hands in my lap, and I literally felt the equivalent of like a wave, or if two people have a blanket or a sheet and they're shaking it so that it's, ebbing and flowing, kind of like a wave would, or a rope, a jump rope. I felt that wave of energy moving between my two hands, back and forth against my leg. And it almost made my leg and the palms of my hands feel like they were moving, that they were not solid. And it was great. But that's the experience that I had this time. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. To me, meditation is genuinely some kind of a doorway into the synchronistic experience. When I'm able to meditate, whether it's a couple of minutes just focusing on the water rushing out of the sink as I'm doing the dishes, or something like this where you spend 6 minutes in a relaxed, just completely empty state of mind, or you do it for an hour or longer, whether you find it when you're running, which I used to do. I used to run all the time for years when I was in college age. When you do that you do reach some type of a connection that increases synchronistic events as well as other things. And as I've said on this program before, I genuinely believe that synchronicities are the doorway that you open to all the other experiences. That when you start to recognize synchronicities and cool coincidences and things that seem to be causally related, even if that is thinking something and having it come to fruition, to having an intention and that intention actually making its way back to you. Those aren't synchronistic per se. They are more intent-driven, or ask and you shall receive kinds of things, being open, praying, all of that. That all the other experiences that are in this spiritual realm are offshoots from that point. And to me, I can get to that point more often and more intensely through meditation of some sort. So I hope you like that. I really do. I also, since we're talking about meditation, and I mentioned the fact that I had this experience with my hands, I had another experience related to my hands earlier this week. And for some of you who are a little squeamish, you're going to go, ew, that's weird. But it was weird. And that's what makes it so cool. And it has to do with a stink bug. This just happened on Tuesday. And I posted it as soon as it happened. If anyone does corporate taxes, and I actually have 3 corporations, so it's not something you can just sit down and do quickly. It's not that challenging. I actually don't mind doing them. I just know that I'm going to have to block off lots of time. So I've been working on them off and on for several days. And on Tuesday in the late evening, I was working on them. Now, what made that so unusual was I had the form up on my computer screen, and I had last year's tax return in one of those paper stands to the left, and so that I could kind of use it as a model and see what I filled out the year before. It just expedites the process for me. And as I'm doing that, I have to turn the page on the physical paper form from last year. So I reach from the keyboard where I've been typing over to the piece of paper, and if you pinch the corners of a piece of paper in order to turn it to the next page, you start with your hand in a downward position where you see the top of your hand, and then you eventually reveal your palm. Well, I pinched the piece of paper, and I started to flip the page, and in the palm of my hand, I kid you not, was a stink bug. It was actually a beautiful one, just like the one that I posted on the Cool Coincidence Facebook page. It was really colorful. It had nice detailing. It didn't scare me. It surprised me. It was like, how the hell did you get there? And what are you doing there? And I was like, oh, my God, look at that. I don't know how it got there. I really don't. So, but I started to laugh because this isn't the first stink bug that has crossed my path in the last, not even month, the last 2 to 3 weeks. But what I did first was I took this bug out. It was dark by this point, so I grabbed a flashlight, went out on the front porch, just put my hand down and, kind of poked it with my finger slowly so that I could encourage it to move off my hand and onto the little railing that you have on the stoop so that it could be outside and I could go back inside. But it was like, can you imagine all of a sudden you see that there's something in your hand and you didn't even feel it? It's like, how did it get there? But what to me makes this isn't synchronistic as much as it is, I know that I have to, that it's something I need to pay attention to. I wouldn't say that I'm big into totem animals, but I don't discount the information because I have seen, like I remember one day several years ago, I had gone over to the local college to walk around sunset, which I like to do in the summertime. And I was thinking to myself as I'm walking, what is my totem animal? I would love to see my totem animal, so let me put that out there. And when I came home, the front porch door, I have an enclosed porch. I live in a house that was built in 1876, and it's got an enclosed porch that's partially glass, and then the rest of it is like wood. But I call it an outside porch, really. It's not part of the inside of the house. And the door was cracked open, and as I walk up the steps, there is a raccoon right at the door looking at me, and I'm looking at it. And so I'd taken maybe there's only like 4 steps up to the house. I stepped backwards, and I was just talking to it, and I told it, okay, I'm backing up. I'm giving you as much room as you like. Feel free to leave. I didn't want to scare it, and I also wasn't afraid of it. It just, again, startled me like the bug did. So here I ask for it, and then I get one, and I look it up, and I see what it means. And so every once in a while I check in. If I see animals or have situations regarding bugs, I'll just see, what is the totem signification for that supposed to be? And I can't say that it's specific this time, but I can tell you the story. So, because I'm aware of totem information, I always look it up just because it's an interesting fact. But this is the 3rd stink bug that I've had cross my path. The first one was on the inside of the house, on the window sill, the window frame of my bedroom. And if you will, on the Cool Coincidence Facebook page, one of the things, it was a give source a task today. I said, bring me the sun or something like that, because it was supposed to be a cloudy day all day long. And sure enough, at dinner time, I got this burst of sun behind a really gray, overcast day all day. It came out for 5 minutes, and then it was right back the way that it was. So it's like I'm sitting in my home office looking out the window, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, the sun came out. I've got to document this and show those guys. So I went to the window to take those pictures that you see on the Facebook page, and there was this stink bug right there on the inside of the the window frame. And of course I took that one and I got it safely outside. Then I don't know, sometime shortly thereafter, I'm sitting on the floor, leaning up against my bed, working on my laptop, and I've got white socks on, and I didn't even notice it except for the fact that I saw movement across the white. And so that movement got my attention. I looked down, and there's a stink bug walking across my foot. Now, you would think if you're hearing this story that, we must have a lot of bugs in this house, and, no more than any other house, but I do not see stink bugs, and they're not, this isn't the time of year for them. I never see them in the house. So rarely that I can't even tell you, I could probably count on one hand in the 15 years I've lived here, how many times I've seen them just seeing them around here. But sure enough, in the last few weeks, I've seen 3 of them, and they're getting progressively bolder. First on the windowsill, then across my foot, and now I turn my hand, and there's one in my hand. Oh my gosh! You tell me what that means, because I just find it curious. I have no explanation. I'll just wait and see what happens, but I thought that was a really cool story. Another really neat situation that happened in the last few days was, remember I told you I have like a ritual that I go through in the morning, and that ritual includes opening Facebook and trying to scan through the first few entries to see if anything of note has happened that I need to, just respond to in some way, make note of, etc. So I open up my page, and I think this was actually around lunchtime that I was doing this again. But I opened up my page, and there's a woman who I follow who posts art. She is involved with galleries, and I'm not sure how. It's just she always posts collections of various painters. Never photographs. I've never seen her post a photograph, but this morning, the very top post on my page was a photograph of a bird. It looks kind of like a sparrow, that kind of a size, and it has an orange throat area down into the top part of its breastplate. And nothing that unusual about it. I just thought that was pretty, except at that very moment, I'm listening to an iTunes radio station, and the radio station is called Sky FM, and I'm listening to a channel that always puts nature music in the background, or they pick songs that have nature music, whether it's ocean waves or dolphins or birds or, wind or rain sounds or water trickling, that kind of thing. It's kind of cool. So I'm listening to that channel as I pop this page up, and when I see the bird, a song comes on. The name of the song is, let's see if I can go through my notes here. The song is, let's see, it's called Double Sunrise by a woman named Marina Raye, R-A-Y-E, and it's from her album called Liquid Silk. Now, I'm just going to play, 10 seconds of this, but this is the song that came on at the same moment that I opened up my Facebook page and saw this picture of a bird by a woman who never posts pictures of birds. Well, you get the idea. That goes on for 7 minutes. But I just thought, that's kind of fun. But then, all day long, I kept running across drawings and photographs of a bird about the size of a sparrow. I don't even know what any of these birds really are. But they all have orange, or, kind of a burnt orange neck and slight breastplate. And they're not robins. And I was like, I can't believe this. It's one after another, after another, after another. So I thought that was really neat, too. So I've had a whole bunch of synchronicities. I've had even more. What I wanted to do now, though, was finish off a series that we started last week called This American Life. I played 6 parts of a 7-part series. It was about an hour in length, and I just broke it into 7 pieces. This one's about 6 minutes. And they were all stories of people who were telling their stories of coincidence. And that's what this series was, This American Life, Part 7.
This final story is by Kerry Weeks. He's a prop guy for the movies, but he told this at a storytelling competition.
So here's my story. 9 years old, first time going to summer camp. And my grandfather gives me, before I go, he gives me his old pocket knife. It's practically an antique. And so the first thing all of us boys do when we get to camp is we pull out our knives and we start throwing them at things, trying to get them to stick the way Daniel Boone did. And because it's the 1970s, there's nothing unusual about a bunch of young children throwing sharp knives around. And I got mine to stick in the floorboard. It was like, wong. And it was great, but when I pulled it out, the tip broke off. But anyway, camp goes on, and a few days later, I notice my knife is missing. And I look everywhere for it. I look high, I look low, it's gone. But then one day, I'm walking through camp, and I see this group of boys throwing knives at a tree, and something tells me I should check this out. And sure enough, there's this boy there throwing my knife. Now, there's no mistaking this knife, because the handle was red and green, but the colors met in the middle and kind of swirled together in a trippy, psychedelic way. And I've never seen a knife like that before or since. So I walk up to this boy. He's a little older, but I walk up to him and I say, "Hey, that's my knife." And he says, "No, it's mine." And I say, "No, that's my knife. My grandfather gave it to me." And he says, "No, he didn't." He says, "My grandfather gave it to me." And I'm confused all of a sudden. Maybe I should have thought this through a bit more. I thought he would just hand it over. And the other boys, they move in close. And I'm thinking, could it be possible that his grandfather gave him the exact same knife that my grandfather gave me? I mean, is this a thing and I just didn't know it? But I look at the knife he's holding in his hand, and I look at the blade, and I see that the tip of the blade is squared off, as though it were broken. And I say, "That's my knife, because I broke the tip off when I stuck it in the floor." And he says, "What, that? No, it came that way, so you can use it like a screwdriver." And I look at the other boys, and I'm not getting any help from them. And so I wander off, just thinking to myself, screwdriver. I never thought of that. Well, as you can imagine, this really bugged me. And I don't mean just while I was at camp, but for the rest of my life. And, I kept thinking, why did I fold so easily? Why didn't I go to the counselors? And the only thing I can think of is this. I'm the son of a physicist. And I used to ask my dad these questions all the time, like, "Dad, how far away is the sun? Dad, how fast is the speed of light? Dad, what's the closest star?" And he would give me these answers and these numbers that were just so huge, I couldn't get my mind around them. So my point is this. I, better than most other children, had an idea of just how vast the universe is. And therefore, how infinite the possibilities are. So the thing is, at the time, I thought, well, maybe the kid's telling the truth. So the only reason why I bring this up is because this is what I was thinking of when some 32 years later, I become the landlord of a small apartment building. And one of the first things I did as a landlord was I threw this guy out because he was a small-time drug dealer. So on the day he's moving out, I get a call from his neighbor across the hall, a guy I call Budweiser Bob. And Budweiser Bob says, "Hey, that druggie is stealing your refrigerator." And so I hop down there, and sure enough, in the driveway is a pickup truck. And in the back of the pickup truck is a refrigerator. So I charge up the stairs, and I demand to know just what the hell is going on. And Nick, the druggie, calmly tells me, he says, dude, when I moved in here, that refrigerator was so gross, I bought my own refrigerator and swapped it out, and I put that one in storage, and now I'm just putting it back. And I look in the kitchen, and sure enough, there's another refrigerator. It's a little old, a little dirty, but it's working. And I'm trying to think this through. I mean, would someone really go to all that trouble of just swapping out a refrigerator and then putting in storage and bringing it back? Or would a guy go to the trouble of stealing a used refrigerator just to screw his landlord and replacing it with an even more used refrigerator? And, well, the answer to both these questions is yes. But I look up, and there's Nick, and he's expecting me to say something, and there's his buddies who are helping him move, and they're expecting me to say something. So I walk up to Nick, and I look him in the eye, and I say to him, you sweep up real good before you leave. Because there's just too many possibilities in this universe. Thank you.
Terry Weeks lives in New York. His story was recorded live at a Moth Story Slam in New York City. The Moth Radio Hour is now airing weekly on public radio stations. At the beginning of the show, I said I was a skeptic. But after talking to so many people about coincidences, including a Stanford mathematician who spent decades studying them, I end up here, agreeing with this one woman I interviewed about her coincidence. She knew her story could probably be explained away with statistics and probability, but she said, there's just a poetry to things like this when they happen. There's some kind of beauty in it. There's meaning in the noticing of it at all.
Oh, I hope you enjoyed that. I just wanted to make sure I got part 7 in, which actually leads me to a related synchronicity. Of course. Now, the show was last Thursday, and on Sunday evening, let me see if I can pull that up here. Give me 1 second. I was again watching Netflix, this time dedicated. I was done with my work. It was Sunday night. Looks like the screenshot I took was at 7:45 p.m. And I haven't put this one on the Facebook page, but it's just a screenshot of about, 30 seconds in when they're starting the credits on a movie. The movie is called Sleepwalk with Me. Now, this has been in my list of, I don't know what they call it, your list of favorites or the list of things that you want to watch that you just keep track of. You click a little button and it stores it for you for later use. And I have no clue how long that's been in there. Some of those have been in there 6 months to a year. Every once in a while I slide my mouse over and I go, yeah, that looks like a really good movie, but not today. So this was the day that I finally decided to click on this one from that list of favorites. And in the first few seconds as it's showing the credits, it says, in association with WBEZ Chicago's This American Life. Now, I had never heard of This American Life as a program before in my life. And yet, last week, my friend Jim Clausen, or I guess it had to have been close to 2 weeks now, sent me that the link to the page that had that really cool list of stories that I've shared with you, of which part 7 was just the one that you just heard. Other than that, I've never heard of This American Life. I did look it up because I used to live right outside of Chicago in a place called Oak Park. Back in the mid-'80s, shortly after college, I worked I worked there. I'll just leave it at that. I worked there. And but so I was curious, and WBEZ is like a public radio channel, and I thought, okay, what are the odds? What are the odds that something I've never heard of is sent to me by a friend for which I find great use to share with you guys, and then a few days later, the one movie that I picked to watch is being made in association with This American Life and this channel. And so I'm like, okay, I've got to check this out. How many movies has This American Life sponsored or produced? Because they aren't given a producing credit. And if you go to IMDb, which I use religiously to find out stats about movies and TV shows, they aren't even listed in the movie called Sleepwalk with Me in any capacity whatsoever. So I'm doing Google searches. I'm looking under the IMDb to see if This American Life is listed anywhere, and it's not. So as far as I know, there are only 2 movies per se. One is actually called This American Life, which is I forget the gentleman's name, but he's the main host of that radio program, and they decided to kind of take it to the next level and do something in video, and it was only open in a select number of theaters and then went straight to DVD. And this one, now what are the odds? The movie's actually not half bad. The gentleman who stars in it apparently does segments on this program called This American Life. So I thought that was really neat. But that parlays directly into that last episode of that 7-part series on synchronistic stories. Now we have about 20 more minutes, and I have about 2 hours worth of stories and audio clips for you. So I'll just try to share some of the more interesting ones. And I do have a request. The request is this week's shared sync is entitled QTV. Now, if you recall, the shared sync from last week is the one of the garage door knob with the keys in it. And this one, I figure if we talk about it on the air, I might be able to get more people to participate and let me know if they have a shared synchronicity experience with this video. I usually post photos. This week I decided to select a video. It's from a Canadian show called The Q's. And the gentleman who hosted, his name is Gian or John, and I can't think of his last name. But you can find QTV on YouTube if you'd like to. He's got some amazing interviews that he does with all types of famous people, everything from singers to actors, you name it. And he's a really cool guy. They started a segment sometime, I would guess probably in the last year or so, with this comedian, and she's also Canadian, and her name is Elvira Kurt, K-U-R-T. And I thought, as I do with everything that I pick for the shared sync post that I put on Thursdays, I pick them at random. So when I saw this, I think she's really funny, and I thought, let's just try this out. So you can see the video link in today's post for shared sync. But I also have the audio here, too. It's only about 3 minutes. I'd like for you to listen to this, and then just leave yourself open with the intent that you will have a shared experience with this. And however it comes to you, I'm not going to limit it. It doesn't have to be about Canadians or the show The Q or these people in particular. It could be, I don't know, the shirt she has on might be a shirt you have in your closet. Who knows? I'm leaving that really up to you. But let's listen to this together, and I'll see you in about 4 minutes.
They got some moves.
That was good. Yes, but you too. You're exerting an incredible amount of energy.
I may be sick, but my legs still work.
Yes, they do. I bet Rachel's just eager to get over here for an interview with your sick old germs.
Stop it. I'm fine. Everything's okay.
What are you hosting
I'm
tonight?
Actually feeling better.
Are you?
I'm in Winnipeg tonight. Who is today's Culture Hall of Shame inductee?
All right, let's get right to it. Yeah, remember that giant meteor that slammed to Earth?
Sure.
Last week, and the Russians, of all the people in the world, for it to fall in front of this very culture, just because for whatever reason they all got dashboard cameras on their cars. There must be some horrible insurance fraud.
Strange that they all have the dashboard cameras.
That's what I understand. It's for this massive insurance fraud that is rampant, and so they all have to have these. So the
not
cameras
to take anything away from the effects of it, but it was handy that they all had the cameras. We could see the meteor.
Except the Russians continue to be maybe the weirdest people on the planet, because there is this intense bright light. It just, something starts hurtling out of the sky, getting you more intensely brilliant, so you know it's weird, and not a peep. You watch video after video of these dashboard cameras. There's no sound. It's just like, oh, it's the bright thing from the sky again. I don't there's something so joyless about Russians.
You want them freaking out.
Well, Wouldn't you? Even just like a slight jog of the steering wheel, or someone pulling over and doing the Russian equivalent of, WTF? What is that in Russian? I want some kind of reaction, but nothing, nada, yet. Yeah. There was nothing. They were just calm, and like it happens every day. Oh, another meteor near Chelyabinsk or whatever the hell.
So you're putting the Russian people
it's not,
in the Cultural Hall of Shame for not responding to.
What has happened since then?
Okay.
So the meteor lands. There's no reaction for a thing that fell out of the sky so fast it actually broke the sound barrier. There's nothing. These people don't. We would have been freaking out.
Yeah.
Canadians would have been running around in massive circles like, let's collect things to protect. Nothing. They did nothing. So it fell to the ground. It broke the sound barrier, and now chunks of this meteorite are being sold online.
Yes.
There's a Russian.
People want a piece of history.
Auction. That's the shame of it. There's no a piece of it. Who's selling something that comes from, doesn't space belong to all of us? So this online auction site, this Russian avito.ru, which is apparently the Russian version of Craigslist, which is just so sad to me that there's everything now has a version of. I mean, there's probably a Russian version of Q with, Gian Gometsky, where he's like, next week on the program, Adele, who was nothing before she was here. Something, right? There's the equivalent. Rachel Fermani coming next. Russian debut.
Yeah, very good. I forgot what your point is.
Gian Gometsky. There's just the fact that there's a Russian equivalent of everything. And so why they're selling pieces of the meteor that belong to everyone? Shouldn't they just be handing out pieces to everyone on Earth? It came from space. Doesn't that belong to all of us?
How dare they monetize the meteor?
So for $3,000, you can Russia can't hoard the meteor, right? It's not theirs.
It belongs to all of us.
Right.
The meteor that fell
there. They can take the biggest chunks, but and selling it, very capitalistic. No,
right.
Russia, are you conceding then? The whole way of existence.
Another good week with Elvira Kurt. We've come from live Q from Leningrad. I don't know.
That's perfect. I think that's very
terrible.
Good. No, it's
Elvira Kurt, comedian.
I'll be back. Don't you worry.
Thank you. Comedian, writer, curator of Q's Cultural Hall of Shame. Elvira Kurt.
Get better.
I love her. She's hilarious. So that's it, folks. Carry that with you this week. Report back if you have any kind of synchronistic experience with that video or any elements that are discussed therein, and let's just see what happens. I know I'm going to have them. I always have them. But I'm looking for this to be a shared experience. So come on, guys. Let's come from let's bring it to the forefront and let's just have some fun with it. Now, in the chat room, someone who's using the handle Mordukas, Mordokius, has shared a synchronicity that happened this recently, and I wanted to read it to you. Today, a cashier mentioned the difference in the price of gas between the town we were in and our own town. On our way out of town, I remarked about the price of gas as we passed a gas station, and the driver made a U-turn because she realized that she was almost out. So, on the one hand, you get somebody who tells you the price of gas and where it's cheaper. On the other hand, you happen to connect the person who needs the gas at that cheaper price. That was cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, come on, the rest of you. Let's do the same. It's about 12 more minutes until the show's over, and I will continue with some amazing stories. I will share one more. I'll call it food for thought moment that I've had. It's under my Give Source a Task Today, which I post on Wednesdays, and I got an immediate response to that one as well. And then in the last few minutes, I will go do our weekly jog over to Google and look at some of the articles and things that got posted in the last week for the phrase coincidence and synchronicity. Now, as I do each week on Wednesdays, I post something called Give Source a Task Today. And the task that I gave Source yesterday was share experiences to bring my mind and body into perfect synchronicity or perfect sync. And that was, 10-ish in the morning, 10 or 11. And by about 5:30, I had what I'll call an epiphany. That as soon as I got it, I was like, oh my gosh, that relates directly back to my task of having Source share experiences to bring my mind and body into perfect synchronicity. And here's what I wrote. It's about 5:30 p.m. on 3/13, and only about 6 to 7 hours since I posted this entry. All day long, as well as yesterday for that matter, nearly every action I've taken clicks into accord with another. And then I list examples. 1, I write words in an email at the exact moment a guest on a live broadcast says the same thing. I say a phrase out loud to my son, and the Netflix character on the computer next to me says exactly the same phrase that I say, as if we're both reading from the same script. And then I realized, and this is at 5:30 what I was doing that kind of was like, oh my gosh. Then I was bobbing my head back and forth to the credit track of one of those Law and Order episodes as I was, waiting for my dinner to cook in the kitchen. And as I'm bobbing my head back and forth, dun 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 dun, dun 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 dun, boom boom, that kind of thing. My head is swinging back and forth, and I look up, and I just happen to have this Westminster clock sitting on the kitchen table because I'm trying to figure out which button makes it stop playing from about midnight to 6 a.m. And I flipped them all, and I can't figure it out yet, but I leave it there so that I can, with the back open, so that I can figure it out before I put it back. And as I'm doing that, this clock, which is not supposed to be there, is sitting right there at the table, and my head is bobbing in exact synchronicity with the pendulum on this clock. And that's when it hits me. I realize that I am in complete harmony with everything that's going on. I'm a synchologist. And it was at that moment when I realized, oh my gosh, I am in harmony. So I say share experiences to bring my mind and body into perfect sync, and I was in perfect sync. So what I thought was, well, gosh, what does that mean? So I said to myself, I literally was saying these words inside my head like I'm talking to myself, and I said, so if everything is in such fantastic alignment, why aren't I? And I know what the rest of that sentence was going to be, but I'm not going to tell you because it's not important. But I stopped myself at that moment because I realized at that moment what the answer was before I finished asking myself the question. And the answer is, well, everything is in alignment, and it is as it should be. Thus, what is, even if it isn't what I think it should be, is as it's supposed to be. And why? Because this is my journey. And if I trust that, if I know that, then what I want, what I expect, what I am asking for will be when it's supposed to be. So when I began the question, well, what, if everything is in alignment, which I just recognized everything was, if it's in alignment, then why am I not blank? Because I realized I'm not getting blank right now because it's not time. It's not supposed to be now. Now, I took this a step further. I posed this question to my son. I think I actually posed it to him either later that day or the next day. I had to have been later yesterday because I just wrote this yesterday. And I just wanted to know his point of view. I wasn't going to explain myself because he's like, if I'm a synchologist, he's a woologist. He's the skeptic to my positivity. And so I just wanted to know what his answer was going to be, even though I wasn't going to explain myself to him because I didn't want that. I just wanted to know what his answer was. And what I asked him was something like this. I asked him, he's standing right here actually, so I'm waiting for him to leave so that I don't have to say this in front of him. La 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 la. Walking down the street one day, I was talking to a tree, and can you please shut the door, honey? Thank you. I appreciate that. Because if he hears me, he's gonna go into a long debate right here on the air, and we can do that off the air. But what I asked him was something like this. I said, if you knew that your actions or the life that you're living now was going to have a positive impact on a situation or a person or, the life as you know it, but with somebody that you may never meet or someone so far in the future, generations from now, that you couldn't possibly know, would you be willing to experience something other than what you wanted? And he's like, well, I guess it would depend, but I'd have to know them. And I think he was basically saying I have to know them because if I knew them, I could judge whether or not I was willing to sacrifice for them. But he said, but if I didn't know them, and I was never going to know them, how am I ever really going to know what's going to happen? So no. And I go, okay, thanks. And he says, well, why? And what I said was, it relates to that epiphany that I had, which is everything is in perfect alignment. And if I'm looking for something specific, am I willing to be of service, to be a cog in the wheel for somebody else's experience? And my answer is yes. As a matter of fact, I have asked, and I'm sure that this kind of supersedes any other requests that I ask of the universe, but that I really, when I look back on my life, the things that bring me the most joy and are most memorable to me are the things where I've made a difference in somebody's life. So ask yourself that question. I would love to get feedback from you. Would you be willing, if you knew that, let's say you had to experience something negative, like not all the money you wanted, or a foreclosure, or a loss of a job, or a move that you didn't want to make, or you didn't get to go on that vacation you wanted, or your car broke down, so, whatever it might be. If you knew that by being in that position that you were then putting the cogs in the wheels of this connectivity that we all have so that you will make a positive change in someone else's life by allowing yourself to be put in that negative experience, would you do it? And let me know what you think. I would love to hear from you guys. So with just a few minutes left, let me at least throw in one cool coincidence story if I can. In the last week, doing a Google search for the word coincidence, the top article says the 9 craziest causes of simultaneous invention. Let's give that one a shot. See if there's the word coincidences in there. I've clicked the little button, just waiting for Google to respond. By the way, I just discovered today that with Chrome, that if you are in Google, you can actually click a little button next to the search thing and speak your question, your query. I was like, whoa. And that's been in effect for, it looks like, I don't know, a year or something. And I just discovered it today because I usually use Firefox and Safari. Okay, coincidence, the 9 craziest causes of simultaneous invention. Throughout history, major scientific breakthroughs and notable inventions have occurred simultaneously and independently among different thinkers and inventors, who more often than not had no direct contact with each other. The phenomenon is known as multiple discovery. The only problem? Who gets credit? In the case of the first fight, the argument continues. Let's see if the page continues. It's got pictures of Einstein and some other folks. In the first case, and then it just gives samples. So the first sample is, I guess this has to do with the invention of the telephone maybe, Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, and Alexander Graham Bell. Not quite sure where they're going with that, but it's interesting. I actually had an experience when back in the early 90s where I was thinking how cool it would be if they put little panels in the subways on the long rides from the PATH train from Jersey to the city, so that as the train is traveling at a certain speed consistently through those portions, that you would get to see the equivalent of a cartoon if you looked out the window, because it would be going at a speed where the panels would be like cells. I think I told one person that, and they thought I was nuts. Turns out, a few months later, I'm at work, And this girl at work says that same thing, but she was thinking of it in terms of the Bronx downtown. And I couldn't believe that somebody else had come up with this idea. I mean, I was even thinking it through. Who could I get to sponsor it? You know, Trump, da-da-da-da. How long would it take? What kind of challenges would it affect the subway system, et cetera? So who does get the credit for those things? Life is fun, isn't it? Well, listen, I want to thank all of you for joining me this week on the Cool Coincidence Radio Show. Please like our Facebook page. Please visit us on iTunes. Tell your friends about the show so that they can join us live, and so that they can also so that they can be here with us and enjoy it with us together. So I will see you all next week.